Well, I'm not quite sure that it was a champagne cork popping moment, but there was welcome relief this week for people with mortgages, with the Reserve Bank cutting the official cash rate on Tuesday for the first time in more than 4 years. That's a saving of around $100 a month for people with an average sized mortgage.
But for renters wondering when their ever-increasing rents might start to come down, well, the news may not be so rosy. Nicola Powell is the Chief of Research and Economics at Domain. She joins us now from Canberra. Nicola, thanks for taking the time to speak with us.
Good morning.
Now, Nicola, in the last 5 years, landlords have basically justified raising their rents, citing the hikes in interest rates. Will the opposite apply?
We are unlikely to see the outcome of a reduced rental prices because we've seen the cash rate reduce. I think what we have to remember is what influences rental prices is overall market dynamics, and what we still have is largely a landlord's market across Australia. If during that 13 rate hike period that we saw, it was a tenant's market, we wouldn't have seen the increases in rents that we saw unravel during that period of time. We have to remember it was very much a landlord's market. It was extreme conditions across the rental market during that period, and what it created was the foundations for landlords to increase asking rents as a result.
Okay, so why are rents so high right now? It can't all just be due to supply, is it?
So supply is obviously the key thing here. It's that balance between supply and demand, and we do largely have a landlord's market still across Australia. But we have to remember we've seen strong rates of population growth as well. But there's other things. We do have high purchasing prices, and what that means is it does lock people into the rental market for longer because it's very challenging to become that first home buyer.
Now, it is hoped that the interest rates may actually spur new bills. Would that help to perhaps relieve the rental market a little bit more?
We definitely need to see policies really focused on increasing supply. One of the key buyer segments that we've seen increase has been investors. And I think investors have really been moved even before the cash rate was reduced, because they know they chase capital growth. They know once we start to see that cash rate come down, it's likely to spark a little bit of momentum back into our housing markets. So one of the good signs is we do have an increase in investment activity, and that is helping to alleviate some of those conditions across our major capital cities for tenants. And there are some capital cities that are now edging into a more balanced rental market, which I think is really good news for tenants.
All right, but do renters have a right to perhaps ask their landlords to reduce the rent in any way?
Absolutely they do. I think my advice would be do your market research, see what other rental properties are renting out for, and take that market research to your property manager or your landlord. We do have changing conditions, and we have to remember that rents are now starting to slow down, and there are some areas where rental prices are now actually falling. So I think information is power here, and I think taking comparable rental properties to your landlord or your property manager will really help firm your case.
All right. Now, I do wonder whether we need to perhaps introduce capped rents. You know, it worked in New York, it works in Berlin as well. What about the more popular cities in Australia, like Sydney, like Melbourne?
So rental caps are that interesting dynamic because it could provide some short-term relief for tenants, but I think we have to consider the longer-term impacts that could create. I think it could deter investment activity, and what importantly it will do is actually mask market dynamics. So we won't have an understanding of that balance between landlords and tenants. My preference personally is really focusing on policies that improve supply, improve affordable supply, not only for the rental space, but also to allow tenants to transition to becoming homeowners, because we know that still is very much the Australian dream.
How do you get affordable rents?
Increasing supply is really the key thing. I think we've seen an extreme rate of rental growth. I would almost describe it as a structural change in our rental market. House rents have increased about 50% since 2020. Unit rents have increased about 40%. Ultimately, what we need is higher levels of overall supply, but I also think we need to alleviate conditions in our sales market, making those homes more affordable, making sure that we are building the right supply in the right locations. And Sydney, for an example, is one of the least dense cities in the world, and we really need to focus on increasing density in those middle suburbs, not necessarily producing lots of high-rise, but those medium density homes where it's 2, 3, 4-storey apartment buildings or it's terraced homes and townhouses in the right locations is the most efficient and effective way that we can increase supply in our major cities.